I'm Paula Eddie Wilcox, and welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the leadership journey of our guest and what unique traits bring them to be the leader they are today. Who knows what we're going to discover together, so I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to today's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm delighted to be welcomed by Agi Heale, world-renowned author of Generation Panic and certified professional coactive coach. Also an accredited professional certified coach, a member of the International Coaching Federation. Well, I'm also a member of that as well, Agi, so a good global federation to be part of. And she's also certified Master Practitioner of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is something I'm not certified in.
I say NLP to make it get less tongue-tied.
I know, but not everyone will understand what NLP is. So yes, I did a very bad job of saying it in full. So apologies for that. And so many more accolades. Welcome, Agi, to the show. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you so much for having me and for an early start for you.
Oh, gosh, no problem. Well, Agi is referring to the early start because for Agi, she's based in Singapore and it's sort of getting into the twilight afternoon, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm kind of well into my day, whereas you're just getting up. So thank you.
Oh, no problem at all. An absolute pleasure and a small sacrifice just to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And today we're going to dig into your leadership story and what got you to being where you are today, Agi. So please go ahead.
So I thought about this a lot and I thought, how would it be best to put across my leadership story? And I'm Hogan certified as an assessor, and they talk about leading yourself, leading others, and leading the business. So I thought that was quite a nice frame to tell you my leadership story, or kind of to start with it.
Yeah,
so in terms of leading myself, I think that's an ongoing journey. I think that's the biggest learning for me. Over the years, I've definitely learned more and more about what I'm all about and how I operate, what drives me, how I like to lead in all parts of my life, in my personal life, in work. What kind of leader am I? Who do I want to be? You know, all these big, powerful questions. And I think what's cool about leading yourself is that it feels like a bit of an ongoing journey with ups, downs, roundabouts, backwards a few bits, forwards a few bits. And so that's been interesting and kind of exciting to see how that develops and changes. Do you want me to go through kind of headline of the other two, and then we can maybe dig down where you're...
Please do. This is for you to do in any way that feels right for you. So I'm not being prescriptive at all.
Cool. So the second one is leading others, and I originally started leading others kind of officially in a work capacity, I guess, which is where I really think leadership starts. Almost kind of stereotypically, I guess. When I was very young, I was a very young director managing 3 teams, a lot of young, ambitious, driven individuals alongside myself. And it was definitely a learning curve. I was so excited. I was so green and kind of not really aware of what I was doing in many senses, but that kind of wonderful naivety of someone who's kind of young and really excited about leading people. And I made a huge amount of mistakes and learned so much. And I think the biggest thing that I learned from that time was different people need different things and everyone is different. So how you lead and that kind of flexibility of who you're working with and who you're leading feels really, really important. More recently in my current business, Westbourne Associates in Singapore, I've just hired a wonderful woman who has come to join the team. So it's fun to lead again. This feels like a kind of second time in a very different context. It's not in less of a kind of corporate setting rather than just my business, and thinking about what is my vision, what's the direction of the business, where do I want it to go. And so this again feels like a new stretch for me, a new way of expanding my leadership style and how I want to do that, particularly taking into account everything I've learned from a coaching, mentoring, kind of softer side, which I think I wasn't as equipped with before.
Yeah.
And then the third one is leading your business. And as mentioned, I have my business here in Singapore. I started 9 years ago with my own business in the UK, predominantly focusing on coaching, facilitations, running programs for clients, running assessments. And so again, that's part of my leadership story, is doing a business, doing a real life business. And that's been hard. I think the biggest challenge for me has been, it really is 360 of a business. I mean, the print cartridge runs out and I need to fix it, or I need to work out how to do accounts, which are not my strong point, or to put together legal documents, which are not my strong point. And so, again, that's also been challenging and a learning curve. And it feels nice, though, to have got to this point where I've got more experience in the tank and a kind of curiosity to make things better and keep growing. And also, I mean, touch wood, in a position where I can also hire people that can do all the things that I'm crap at, basically. Get all the outsource all the things that aren't my strength, rather than trying to muddle through data protection laws or something.
Yeah, I really love the way that you framed that. And without knowing it, it seems that I'm also very aligned with the Hogan approach in that case, because I do talk about leading yourself, leading others, and leading your business, or, you know, the organization, whatever it is, in whatever context that you're working in. So that really, really resonates with me. So beautifully framed. Thank you, Agi. So tell us about your story.
It's been interesting. I think it's through all of that, obviously I'm the consistent as the kind of leader. And so I think leading myself part has been the real evolution. And that's where it feels most exciting, where I've probably had the most support, where I've had probably the lowest moments and the highest moments. But that story seems to have kind of shifted and changed over the years. And it feels nice, because I feel like I've got to a point where it's what was so refreshing about thinking about this podcast is actually pausing and taking stock of, what does that mean for me, and what is my story, and where has that taken me from and to, and what next, almost. And so, yeah, it feels very nice to reflect on those different parts of me and how they kind of come together more. As I grow, I was just saying before we jumped on, as I grow a bit older and grayer, and
you and me both, your friend.
And where that comes to, but it feels like an interesting time for it all to kind of come together.
Yeah, how lovely to again frame it that way. And I think, yes, we're growing older and wiser, but I know you're quite a few years behind me, Agi. And I've known Agi for a couple of years now, and it's an absolute pleasure to have worked with you a couple of times through the protege mentoring work that we do together with Louise Taglianti. One day I will manage to get her on our podcast, because she's just a fascinating lady, a real disruptor, as she will certainly call herself. And I think, you know, it's been great fun to have been able to meet you through the work there, and bring that really to our listeners today to share your story. Now, of course, in your third episode with us, because we're lucky enough to have you for 3, is you'll be talking about your pivotal moments, but it would be lovely to hear really how you started and how you kind of got to today.
So if I roll back, I mean, how far you want to go back, but I guess I started leading myself in some ways going to university. I think I was very fortunate. I took a year out and went traveling, exploring the world. I literally got an around the world ticket and went off with a backpack and not much money in my bank account, and decided to read English literature at Leeds, which was, I don't know, it sounds like a small decision probably for other people, but it was such a passion of what I really love doing. I love reading. I love getting immersed in books. And so not going down a stereotypical route of what I thought I'd do, like business and languages, which was my other kind of A-level focus, and starting to take the lead on where I wanted to go felt really important. And then coming down to London, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And suddenly kind of started falling into conversations about recruitment. I can't even remember how it really came about. I had one friend who worked in a company and they were like, this is so cool. You know, you get to chat all day and meet cool people. And it just kind of spiraled from there. I then went on and met with a number of different places and was fortunate enough to just choose, and really trusting my gut of where feels best for me and what's the right company to take me forward. So I joined a company called Morgan McKinley, which focuses on financial services recruitment. And this was back in 2009. And so I specialized in compliance, which was just a boom time for compliance. We were absolutely flat out. It was so exciting. It was so buzzy. People were moving, movers and shakers across the industry. And I just learned a lot. I was basically on a grad scheme and quickly rose up from there. And then I was headhunted over to a company called Brew Financial, which were the ex-CEO and CFO of Morgan McKinley set up. And it was a startup. And I kind of grew from the get-go with them. And it has turned into a huge, very successful company, and I grew with that. So that's where that first part of leadership, of leading others, happened. And very quickly, I was a very young director with a huge amount of responsibility, covering the compliance team and the risk team, the sales and marketing team. And so not only going out and recruiting, headhunting for clients, but also how do I bring those people up internally? How do I make sure that they've got the resources, the skills, the knowledge, and the mindset to feel good in themselves, to be the best recruitment consultants they can be. So it was fun. I mean, we'll probably come on to the pivotal moment later, but for the most part, it played to my strengths, and it was fast and really connected to people, and in many ways is very linked to coaching, because I was essentially working out what would make people happy and what they wanted out of their career, and then trying to find that job that lined it up. So it was kind of cool. And I got to manage all these people. You know, I was just living the life in London.
It's so lovely to see you really smiling about it, because a lot of people sort of talk about their early days and and as you rightly said, you make mistakes and you don't know what you're doing. I was exactly the same. I was thrown in at 19 managing this huge team, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So it's, it really is lovely to see you looking back on it fondly and loving the moment at the time.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't feel the imposter syndrome then. I think I was so fired up. I was just so excited to be doing what I was doing, and was lucky that I was successful. So I had experiences and placements and people that I was starting to work with and build relationships with that just gave me such a boost. And recruitment is notoriously quite a youthful
Yes.
industry, because people get so burnt out and knackered and fed up. So it's just, I was never in. I often coach leaders now who are struggling with, managing people who are a lot older than them, or who have been in the business for a very long time and know it far better than them, who are just new, or have been wonderful high performers but are unable to make that transition into management. Whereas I think I was kind of just in this sweet spot, where it just felt really fun. It really did, and it felt like I was where I was meant to be at that moment, which was kind of energizing in itself, until it wasn't.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's lovely to look at it that way. You're exactly where you're supposed to be in that moment. A really lovely way to describe it, Agi. So what happened next?
So what happened next? Well, I'm always kind of conscious of going too much onto what the pivotal moment would be. But in short, I had all this stuff on paper, and I was also engaged to be married at the time, which was super exciting, but incredibly overwhelming. And so I was very, very, very anxious at the time, and having panic attacks, and thinking that it was related to the wedding, because that was an additional stress. We had I've married someone from a different culture, so we had different cultural wonderful ceremonies, but things that I had never even done before, and then I was going to be the center of attention of them. So the whole thing was just a bit overwhelming, and in my head, I'd never thought, oh, I know exactly what I want my wedding to be like. So I was suddenly faced with all these decisions that people expected that I'd been thinking about since the age of 4. And I was like, I don't know. I'm a complete rabbit in a headlight. And it was just far too much for me. However, so anyway, long story short, we went and got married. It was wonderful. Thank God that was over. I hope I never have to do that again. But I was still, after the wedding, incredibly anxious. I just didn't feel good in my own body at all. And felt like the words that I kept on using at the time were like, I feel really wizzy, I feel shaky, I feel wobbly, like I just felt, having gone from that kind of high of what I was just explaining, it suddenly felt like even the smallest things were just too all-consuming, and too big, too scary. I was scared of everything, and quite frankly, I just didn't know how to handle it. And so, having thought, oh great, the wedding's over, now we can go back to normal life, I'm going to go back to feeling myself. That was really it. I'm going to go back to feeling myself. And then realizing, oh no, I still really don't feel myself. It's actually the wedding, I think, was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And there was so much else going on underneath that I had missed all these flags, red flags, all these signs, all these moments. Because I was just so caught up in that kind of adrenaline, fastness, the succeeding, the on paper, and I was completely, essentially disconnected with what was really going on, or how I was really feeling, or what was happening in my body, until I got to a point where my body just took over and was like, hold on, we're going to put the brakes on very fast here, because this is not working. This is not working very well.
Goodness me.
Yeah.
So a complete change in what you were doing then, in terms of your day job, if you like.
Yeah, a complete change. So I stuck it out for about a year after that. But I just felt unfulfilled. It felt like, as I said, I'd ticked many boxes. I had a lot on paper, but I just kept on thinking, like, is this it? Like, is this really what it's about? Because this doesn't feel hugely happy. This doesn't feel hugely like full-hearted. This feels like doing something for someone in a way that felt like a shell rather than like full. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It really does. And I talk a lot with clients about that feeling of excuse me, dissatisfaction, feeling unfulfilled, almost undervalued to a point. That you but interestingly, Aggie, people can't always put the finger on what it is. Exactly what you just said there. Is this it? What else is there? I thought it would be much more fun, much more engaging, much more exciting, much more fulfilling than this. And, you know, I think you and I are both here to tell people that actually there is definitely more to it if you are feeling that way. And nobody deserves to feel that way, because as adults, we spend, I think it's something ridiculous, like 70% of our adult life at work. I know, isn't that a sobering thought?
Crazy. Like when you put it like that, but it's so hard in the moment to see it. It's so hard. I can't explain. And I think as well, the company was going in a direction that I didn't like as much. It was becoming less kind of, we grew very fast. From when I joined, there was maybe 12 people. And then by the time I left, there was about, I think it was about 60 or 70 and continuing to go. So it was suddenly shifting from this, soft is the wrong word, but just like a fun startup in it for the right reasons, very values driven, into a company that was very, probably every stereotype of what a recruitment company is that, right, stats, go, 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 you're only as good as your last deal, every week it's back to zero, go, 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 go. And so it turned into this thing. And I thought, God, is this really where like if I fast forward, I knew that I wanted to have kids, and if I get caught in mat leaves, am I just going to still be sat here? I can't see where my job's going to go from here. Unless I was running the entire, but I was already managing 3 of the teams out of the 12 or whatever it was in the business. What else could really change? And yeah, I just kept on coming back to, is this it? Is this, like, really? Have I missed this big secret? Like, is this what it's about? So I've almost kind of knocked on the door of what all the pivotal moments were, because those 2 moments in themselves of, is this it? And the anxiety, the panic that I was feeling really shifted my entire world, and what I felt, who I was, my identity, my career. Yeah, it was a very confronting time. But I'm obviously so glad that I am where I am, but it didn't feel like that at some of those days.
Of course. So let's hold those thoughts, of course, for episode 3 when you come back and join us. But in terms of where you are now, a very different place. So tell us a little bit about Westbourne Associates and what you get up to now.
So Westbourne Associates focuses on coaching programs, essentially. And so under that, it will be working with clients either in an individual one-to-one coaching arrangement, or within a group, perhaps in the business, or a team, running workshops, running facilitations, and then also running assessments. So the assessments can either be for individuals or teams or specific leader ones. And so all 3 together, they almost are kind of like the umbrella that sit over the business. And so people either come in and they go, great, I need a boost, or I'm really struggling with X, or I want to get better at Y. And so they just come for coaching, or a team might come just for a workshop that they need to, clarify their vision, or they need to do some goal setting, or they need to boost up some of their members, or define roles and responsibilities, whatever it might be. Or some people just come for assessments, or they come for the whole lot. And that's kind of super. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but that's so fun, because you get a real, actually, to be honest, with all of it, you get front row seats to just like the most incredible transformations and It really is such a privilege. But when you work with a client over full programs, that's just really cool. I really, really enjoy that. Because you're kind of tackling things from so many angles.
Yeah, I love the way you just described it there. I always call it a privilege to be working with people and seeing that transformation. But it's that front row seat that you just said. What a lovely way to describe it. And it really is like winning the lottery and having that front row seat and everything, isn't it? It is such a privilege for people to open their hearts and minds to us, to be able to support them, because they have the answers within them. They don't need us to tell them what to do. It's just that unlocking the key, isn't it? Or putting the key in the lock and unlocking it for them, to be able to find what it is that they're sometimes not aware of, but sometimes very focused on finding for themselves.
Yes, completely agree. It's the greatest honor, and I never take that lightly. To be privileged to such powerful conversations that sometimes they don't even, tell their partners or families or friends or co-working colleagues, and you've got these rich, insightful, such powerful conversations. And then how you can kind of mold and shift and make it even better, and so that truly anything becomes possible. And that's the kind of the arc that we want to take clients through, is getting to that point when if you say what's possible now, they're just like, anything. You're like, yes, we made it. This is where we want to be. I really believe that. I really believe that anyone can do anything they want if they put their mind to it.
Oh, that's so exciting. And gosh, that's brought us sort of right up to date of where you are now with your leadership journey, Agi. Thank you so much for sharing some of that honor and privilege with us. I feel exactly the same. I also bring that into my hosting of podcasts world, because it is an honor and a privilege to talk to you and my other guests, because you're very generous in what you share to enable our listeners to learn and support their own leadership journeys. It really is an honor, and thank you so much for joining us today. And I cannot wait for our next 2 episodes. I don't know what's to come. And of course, next week we'll be looking at your take on game and leadership. So thank you so much for today, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Today, we listen to the leadership journey of our guest and how they got to be where they are today. Now, in the chats, we talked about all sorts of different things, and there are lots of bits and pieces in there that are going to mean something different to each and every one of you. You will all have your own unique takeaways, so I encourage you to do a bit of reflection now and see what this might mean for your leadership moving forwards. I'm Paula Eddie Wilcox, and I look forward to seeing you on Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders, next week. Bye for now.